Okay, so it does seem like we have a couple of questions here, and it looks like actually some of you have the same problem here, and it has to do with Ticker Wizard. So I'm going to throw my scene on air here again, or my artist on air. I'm going to go into Ticker Wizard. It seems that some of you are getting the same error here, that when you go to load your scene, what happens is if we already have a background scene loaded in here and we want to add a new one, we go to select scene. It throws us this error, and it's saying it's not possible to change the background scene of the existing ticker system. To use a new background scene, we must start over and delete the current system. So to do this, what we need to do is go into our ticker carousels, and what we need to do is double click on each one of these, and we're going to delete this. We're going to delete every single thing in here, including our time and our extra. And then besides the ticker carousels, we actually need to go into the output channels as well. Double click on our main, and we're going to delete that. Now we're going to jump back into our main page, and since we are connected, now it's going to allow us to select the scene again. So I'm going to go ahead and select scene, and here we are back to the beginning. So I can go to my ticker BG, I load that up. Our two boxes on the left here become active, so I can go ahead and click on these boxes and start wizarding again, if you will, these scenes. So again, I have our main one, and I'm just going to highlight that. I'm going to hit next. It's related to our main crawl. I hit next and finish. Again, box is still active, so I go ahead and click on it again. This time it's the side ticker. We load up our side group, hit finish, and once it is finished, this box is no longer active, so we cannot click on that anymore. Now we do have the option for create our flipping ticker, so I go ahead and load that up again and click on it. It takes us into our carousels. Again, we can select our time, we hit next, we select our time call up scene, it's importing it, we hit next, we hit finish. And since there is one more flipping ticker to wizard, little box is active still, so I click on it again. We have one more, it's our extra. I hit next, and I hit our extra scene again. It imports it, and we hit next and finish. So now it's all loaded up again. However, if you did need to go back and completely reload a brand new scene, we would have to go into our ticker carousels and output channels and delete them and start all over again. We also have a question here about the ticker feed and how that works. Now, I don't have this set up at the moment, but I will explain to you the theory behind it and how it works. There is a separate installer, it's called Ticker Feed here, that you can install, and basically allows you to take a feed from a data source and feed it into your ticker system. To get this to work, it could be a little bit tricky because what you're really dealing with is parsing data. And when it comes to parsing data, you need to make sure you have the right file structure. So where to begin with this ticker feed is that if we come over to our start menu and we go into all programs, we can go into our Vizrt here. We installed our ticker feed, and we have this little ticker feed folder here. We have two things here. We have first a manual, and we have a readme file and a config file. So if I bring up the readme file, and I'm also going to bring up the other component here in ticker feed, it's called the config file. First, in the readme file, it says to feed, make available an XML file corresponding to the document type definition. And then it also says to set up edit ticker feed.ini with text editor. So here you can see that we have our ticker feed.ini file. This example file here just basically tells you how to set up your sources. So here, if we're taking a feed source from our C drive, we just need to tell it the source here. And here I have a source equals file blah 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 feed data XML. That means I would need to go into my computer, into my C drive, and I have a folder here called feed and data, and here's my data.xml. So this ticker feed.ini relates to where our actual data source is coming from. Now the one thing about the data source is if I open my XML file here and I'll just open it with Notepad. One thing that you need to be very careful about is our naming conventions in here. Our XML file naming conventions need to relate to our naming conventions that we set up in Ticker. So here we have, for instance, a scrolling carousel. This main here would relate to a carousel that we have, and then we have our different entries or data entries down here that would automatically feed into our Ticker. So it can take some tweaking to get all your naming conventions set up and your XML transformation or your XML source set up to be the right structure. But once you do have everything set up in your XML, you can go ahead and just run your Ticker feed here, and that should populate your Ticker client then. Now, like I said, some of my naming conventions aren't set up for this current project, but once it is, it would automatically populate your fields here depending on which carousel you have it up to feed. Another question here it looks like someone has is creating extra functionality within Artist. Okay, so what we did here in our Ticker BG, pretty fundamental stuff. If you want to take it further and have it do your own stuff through functionality or whatever, you can certainly use this script function. Okay, and it looks like yeah, someone sent you a file that is using this. Okay, so this scripting here, if you're not familiar with it, allows you to write basically code within Vizrt Artist itself, and you can pretty much set up any type of functionality that you need to. Now, if you're a designer, obviously you're not going to have programming chops to do a lot, but if you do have a programmer that you work with within your design department or your organization, certainly they can help you figure out you know, naming conventions and or any type of scripting that you may need beyond that. Another question, it looks like someone has, I'm interested in creating a spacer between some of my lines of text. Okay, this is no problem. So let's go back into our main crawl here, and again, just so that we're sending some data here, we're going to use our main crawl group here, and with the name here, so I'm just going to copy the name, main crawl, and we're going to go back into our crawl source. I'm just going to copy and paste that into there, and we're going to hit these parentheses again, and we'll hit reinitialize and trigger. Okay, so we have some text coming in here. Now we want to create a spacer or something like that, so whichever you want to use, either an image or let's say some type of object too. We can even slide this down. So if we want to use a 2D or a 3D object, we can slide this down into the scene tree. Let's just put this into our Ticker templates and main crawl group. We can turn this on for a moment just to see the size of it. So let's just scale this down, reposition it, and move it right over there like that. This could be a logo as an image. This could be, like I said, pretty much anything. So once we have that like that, let's turn this Ticker templates off for a minute, or let's hide it. Then we're going to go back into our main crawl. We'll just hit reinitialize, and now you can see this little spacer is now inserted in between each one of our pieces of data. And again, if you needed to swap that out, you could go back into your Ticker templates here, and we could add a control plugin to swap that out. So if it was an image, if we had an image on there, we could drop an image on there. We would change our field identifier to 2, since this one is 1, and then you'd be able to swap that out if it were an image. Okay, last question here. It looks like you're interested in clearing out what's already in your carousels. Okay, so I'm just going to go into on air here. I'm going to go into my Ticker client. Let's say you have some carousels or some information already in your carousels. So I'm just going to create a couple of things here. For example, we have these slid over. Let's fill it out a little bit more, slide it over. Okay, you have your data within here. Okay, so it's cycling through the data. At any time, if you want to kind of skip a message, you can set another message active. So you can come down here and right click on it, and you can say set as next, and we'll prompt you, are you sure you want to set this message as next? Yes. So that means it will completely skip this middle one. It will come down to this one and then go back up to that one. Also, if you just want to turn one of these icons off, it won't show that piece of data in your ticker anymore. And at any point, if you want to clear out any of these, you just right click and you can set delete, and it says move message to message pool. You can hit yes, and now it's gone. So that clears out any type of data that you may have.